I didn't throw the wine. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cry. I just slid the ring off my finger and left, while everyone stared. The diamond clinked against the water glass as I stood, picked up my clutch, and walked out of the Cobalt Room, Charleston's finest restaurant, without saying a word. I remember the scrape of my chair on marble, the collective silence around the table, and the sharp, startled inhale from Evelyn Bellamy. I didn't turn back, not even when Nathan called my name, not even when his father chuckled behind me like he'd just won a game I didn't know I was playing. That was 12 hours ago. Now I'm sitting on the floor of my apartment in Lexington, Kentucky, still in the navy blue dress I spent 3 months saving for, my mascara dried in streaks down my cheeks, trying to process what the hell just happened. The ring, a flawless emerald cut diamond, probably worth more than my car, is no longer mine. The man I was supposed to marry, Nathan Bellamy, 30, financial analyst from Charleston's bluest bloodline, is no longer mine either. And I think I'm okay with that. We met 3 years ago at a charity gala for local schools. He was in a suit that probably cost more than my entire monthly salary, but he'd knelt next to a student science project with real interest. I was there as a volunteer, still paying off my undergrad loans, still juggling 2 part-time jobs just to survive my first year as a teacher. We couldn't have been more different. And yet, when he asked about my classroom instead of my dress, when he offered to walk me to my car instead of asking me out on the spot, I let myself believe he was different too. And for a long time he was thoughtful, charming, supportive in ways that felt real. He helped me with lesson plans when I worked late. He remembered every test day I stressed about. 2 weeks ago, during a quiet weekend in the Blue Ridge Mountains, he proposed on the edge of a cliff as the sun set behind us. No flash mobs, no cameras, just us and the sound of wind through pine trees. I cried, said yes, called my sister before we even walked back to the cabin. I thought I had everything I wanted. Then came last night. Nathan's parents had invited us to the Cobalt Room to celebrate our engagement. Just family, just dinner, just formal enough to make me recheck my makeup in the car 3 times. Gregory Bellamy, his father, greeted me with a firm handshake and a glance that slid right through me. Evelyn offered a polite smile and air kiss that missed my cheek by 2 full inches. I told myself they were just old money cold, not unkind. I told myself it didn't matter, that Nathan chose me. Dinner began smoothly. Champagne, toasts, laughter. Nathan squeezed my hand under the table when I stammered through a thank you. I thought I was holding my own until the main course arrived. Gregory set down his wine glass with a deliberate clink, cleared his throat, and fixed his gaze on me like a surgeon preparing for an incision. "Now that you're officially joining the Bellamy family," he said, voice low and measured, "we should discuss the prenuptial agreement." The table fell silent. Nathan shifted beside me. "Dad, we haven't even set a date yet." "Let's not." But Gregory cut him off with a raised brow. "No need to delay. These things are better handled early. The Bellamy assets need proper safeguarding." Evelyn murmured something about practicality. I nodded slowly, trying to steady my voice. "I understand. I don't have any issue with a fair prenup." Gregory smiled thinly. "How pragmatic of you. A schoolteacher marrying into the Bellamy estate. I'm sure your mother is proud." I stiffened. Nathan had told them about my mom, how I lost her to cancer at 19. "She would have wanted me to be happy," I said quietly. "I'm sure she would," Gregory replied, swirling his wine. "Nothing makes a mother prouder than seeing her daughter secure a financially stable future." I looked at Nathan, waiting, hoping. His eyes were on his plate. "I didn't say yes because of Nathan's money," I said. My voice trembled. "I said yes because I love him." "Of course you do," Evelyn said with a syrupy smile. "And the money's just a lovely bonus, isn't it?" Gregory laughed then. Not a chuckle, a sharp, cruel sound that sliced through the ambient music. "Let's not pretend," he said. "Pretty girls from modest families don't chase men like Nathan, for their personalities. My body went cold. I waited, prayed. Nathan didn't say a word. And then he laughed, a short, nervous sound that might have passed for discomfort, but not for defense. He laughed, and that was it. I saw him clearly in that moment, not as the man I loved, but as a man who would never stand up when it counted. His silence roared louder than Gregory's insult. His laugh felt like betrayal in its purest form. I didn't speak, didn't cry. I just took off the ring, set it down beside his glass, and walked out. Not just from the restaurant, but from the life I thought I was building with him. I didn't sleep that night. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, my phone buzzing every hour with another text from Nathan. Can we talk? Please let me explain. I didn't mean to laugh, but he did laugh. And now, every time I closed my eyes, that moment replayed on a loop, the clink of my ring hitting glass, the silence that followed, and his awkward, betraying chuckle. By morning, I'd convinced myself he wouldn't come, that he'd take the hint. But at 9:14 a.m., I heard the knock. Not a light tap, a determined, steady rhythm. I stayed on the couch, arms folded. He knocked again, and again. I opened the door. He looked awful. Eyes bloodshot, hair unkempt, the sleeves of his dress shirt still wrinkled from last night. In one hand was the ring box, in the other a bouquet of wilted roses. Isabel, his voice cracked. Please. I stepped aside and let him in, but I didn't offer coffee. I didn't smile. I didn't even ask how he was. He sat on the edge of the couch like a student waiting to be scolded. I stood across from him, arms still crossed. Talk. He took a shaky breath. I'm sorry about last night. My dad, he was completely out of line. He had too much to drink. He doesn't think. I cut him off. Don't make excuses for him. My voice was low but steady. The problem wasn't your father, Nathan. It was you. He insulted me repeatedly, and you sat there and let it happen. He leaned forward, desperate. I didn't know what to say. I didn't want to cause a scene. You didn't need to cause a scene, I said sharply. You just needed to say one thing. Just one sentence. One gesture. Anything that told him I mattered. That I wasn't some opportunist clinging to your bank account. I was trying to keep things calm. No, I snapped, voice rising. You were trying to stay comfortable. At my expense. His face fell. He opened the ring box, pushed it toward me like a peace offering. I love you, Isabel. You know that. I'm on your side. No, I said again, quieter this time. You weren't. Not last night. Not when it mattered. He stared at the floor. My father's opinion doesn't matter to me. It should matter to you that he tried to humiliate the woman you claim to love. I stepped closer, lowering my voice like it would hurt less if I whispered. And someday, if we had children, would you let him talk to their mother like that while you stare at your plate? He looked up at me, confused. It wasn't silent agreement. Then what was it? He had no answer, just a faint, ashamed shake of his head. I turned away, needing distance. Has he always thought I was that? Nathan hesitated. That moment of pause was all the answer I needed. Why didn't you tell me? Because I knew it would hurt you. I laughed bitterly. So instead, you let him hurt me directly, in front of everyone. He ran his hands through his hair in frustration. I love you for you, your kindness, your weird obsession with horror novels, the way you talk about your students like they're your own. Who cares what my father thinks? I care, I said, because if we were married, this wouldn't stop. Every holiday, every gathering, every moment we shared with your family would be laced with contempt. And you? You'd stay silent again. His eyes welled up. I'll talk to him. I'll make him apologize. This isn't just about him, Nathan. It's about you. About how you disappear when he's in the room. About how I don't recognize the man I love when your father's voice gets loud. He stood slowly, realizing the depth of what I meant. Are you saying it's over? I'm saying I need to think. He nodded, then walked to the door. Before he left, he turned and said softly, I'll wait. However long it takes. I didn't answer. I couldn't. That night, as I sat with my best friend Rachel, who brought ice cream and refused to let me mope in silence, I told her everything. And as I did, her face changed. You haven't told him what his father did this morning, have you? She asked. No, are you going to? I want to see if he finds out, and if he does, what he'll do about it. Because that morning, while I sat crying over everything I thought I'd lost, my principal called me into her office. She was holding a printed email from the Bellamy Foundation's legal counsel, aka Gregory Bellamy, stating concerns over my emotional stability and whether I should be allowed to remain in my teaching position. Apparently, walking out on his son made me a threat to public education. My principal shredded the letter in front of me. I've known you for 5 years, Isabel, she said. Whatever personal drama you're going through, it's yours. And it ends outside this school. I thanked her. I tried not to cry, but I also knew there was no going back now. Not to that family, not to that man, not to the version of myself who had let so many things slide for love. And maybe not even to Nathan. 3 days passed without a single word from Nathan. Not a call, not a text, not even one of his half-hearted thinking of you emojis that used to pop up when we argued. At first, I thought maybe he was processing. Maybe, for once, he was confronting his father. But deep down, I already knew. Silence wasn't growth. It was avoidance again. So when I got the message from an unknown number asking to meet for coffee, I almost didn't respond. But something about the formality of the text, the careful phrasing. Would you have time to speak with me, privately, away from the family? Told me exactly who it was. Evelyn Bellamy. I agreed, more out of curiosity than hope. We met at a little cafe tucked between antique bookstores, nowhere near the Bellamy's country club world. She arrived 10 minutes early, dressed in an understated trench coat, no jewelry except for a simple gold band. Her face looked different somehow, softer, tired. I owe you an apology, she said before I could sit down. I blinked. Excuse me. What happened at the dinner? She said, voice calm but resolute. It was unacceptable. I should have spoken up. I sat slowly, unsure what to make of this. Evelyn had always been composed, distant, as though her real opinions were locked behind polished smiles and pearls. Now, she looked like someone who hadn't slept in days. She stirred her coffee once, then stopped, hands resting lightly on the cup. Gregory has always been forceful in his views, she said. And Nathan, he's always wanted to please him, sometimes at great personal cost. I noticed, I said, a little sharper than I meant to. She gave a faint smile. I should have intervened. I've been smoothing Gregory's rough edges for 30 years, making excuses, protecting everyone from his bluntness. And I've paid the price for it. I was wrong not to speak that night. I stared at her. Why now? She took a long breath, then looked me dead in the eye. Because I see myself in you. 30 years ago, I was you. A girl from a modest background who fell in love with a Bellamy man and thought love would be enough. I stayed. I compromised. I gave up things small at first, then bigger. My voice, my boundaries, my sense of what I deserved. I told myself I was building a beautiful life, but somewhere along the way, I stopped recognizing myself in the mirror. The words hit like a slow ache. She reached into her bag and pulled out a small velvet pouch. This belonged to my grandmother, she said, placing it gently in my hand. It's not worth much. Gregory never liked it, said it wasn't impressive enough for a Bellamy wife. But it's the only thing I have from my family. I opened the pouch. Inside was a delicate sapphire ring, vintage, understated, and beautiful in its own quiet way. I want you to have it, she said. I tried to protest. Evelyn, It's not an engagement ring, she interrupted. It's not about Nathan. It's about you. about women like us who keep shrinking to fit someone else's world. It's a reminder, don't disappear. Don't let yourself be erased for the sake of love that asks too much. Something in me cracked. I looked at the ring again, this tiny, defiant blue stone that had somehow survived generations of silence. We sat there for nearly 2 hours. She told me about the early days, how Gregory's parents had treated her like a stray dog Nathan dragged in, how she'd thought time and motherhood and devotion would earn her respect, how it never really did. I've watched Nathan become more like him every year, she said quietly, despite everything I tried. He loves you, Isabel. I believe that. But love isn't always enough, is it? No, I whispered. It's not. Before we parted, she touched my hand gently. Whatever you decide, don't compromise yourself away. Not for anyone. I carried the sapphire ring home in my coat pocket. That night, Rachel and I drank a bottle of wine and had what she called a burn the wedding magazines party. I didn't actually burn anything. We used them as coasters, but the gesture felt right, letting go in pieces. I placed the sapphire ring on my right hand, not as a promise to anyone else, but as a quiet vow to myself. I would never again explain away disrespect. I would never again beg someone to choose me while they sat in silence. I would never again lower my worth just to be accepted at someone else's table. This wasn't about Nathan anymore. This was about me and the woman I was becoming. I didn't expect to see him again so soon. But less than a week later, on a gray Saturday afternoon, while I was packing boxes to move out of my apartment, there was another knock on the door. This time I didn't hesitate. I opened it before he could knock twice. Nathan stood there, framed in the doorway, his suit replaced by jeans and a plain button-up, his expression unreadable. Behind him, the sky threatened rain. You're moving, he said, not as a question. I nodded. I can't afford this place on a teacher's salary, not without your half. He looked around the apartment, the half-packed bookshelves, the empty space where our framed pictures used to be. I'll still pay my share if you want to stay. No, I need to go. I set a stack of books down. This was never just mine. I need something, that is. He walked in slowly, glancing around like he didn't recognize the place anymore. I didn't offer him coffee. This wasn't a reunion. I quit, he said after a moment. I blinked. What? I left Bellamy Capital. I turned in my resignation 2 days ago. I accepted a position at a small firm across town, no ties to my father, no family perks, just me. He handed me an envelope. Gregory's response to his resignation. It wasn't a letter, not really, just a printed email, curt and full of veiled disappointment. This is foolish, Nathan. You're walking away from legacy, security, a future we've built for you. I should have done it years ago, he added quietly. I thought I was doing the right thing, staying close, keeping the peace. But I became someone I didn't like. I sat on the edge of a box. Why now? Because I saw your face that night. Because I heard your voice when you told me I disappeared around him. Because you were right. I've been living in his image, not mine. For the first time in weeks, I let myself really look at him. Not the man who betrayed me with a laugh, but the man I'd loved before everything got heavy. There was something different in his posture, less performative, more grounded. I don't expect you to take me back, he said, interrupting my thoughts. I just needed you to know. You were right, about all of it. My hands were still holding the envelope. Part of me wants to believe we could fix this, I admitted, that we could undo it all. And the other part, he asked gently, remembers the way you looked at me when your father called me a gold digger. Remembers how you didn't flinch, didn't move, just let it land. I need time, I said finally. I'm proud of you for standing up to him. Truly. But this isn't about your father anymore. It's about us. And I don't know who we are without all the damage. He nodded, not trying to argue. Take all the time you need. I'll be here if you ever want to talk. He left without asking for anything. No promises, no timelines. Just space. Real, honest space. That night, I sat among my boxes and felt, for the first time, a strange calm. Like I was exactly where I needed to be, even if I didn't know what came next. 2 days later, Evelyn called. This time, she asked me to lunch. We met at a quiet restaurant she said Gregory had never set foot in. She looked lighter. No pearls, no pressed blouse. Just a linen dress and a sense of ease I'd never seen in her. Gregory doesn't understand why Nathan walked away, she said, picking at her salad. He thinks it's about you. I raised an eyebrow. It's not. She smiled. No, it's about Nathan. He finally did something for himself. Before we parted, she reached into her purse and pressed something into my hand. A small velvet pouch, familiar. I gave this to you once, she said, but you left it behind when you moved. Inside was the sapphire ring. I want you to have it, not as a symbol of engagement, not even as a memory of Nathan, but as a promise, from one woman to another. I tried to protest again, but she shook her head. It's not about marriage. It's about light. Yours. Don't let anyone dim it. Ever. When I got home, I didn't put the ring back in the box. I slipped it onto my right hand and stared at it in the sunlight spilling through the window. No vows, no expectations, just a quiet, personal reminder that I was no longer willing to be quiet in rooms that tried to silence me. I didn't move into the tiny studio apartment I had originally planned. Instead, I moved in with Tara, a fellow teacher and longtime friend, who had just bought a house on the east side of Lexington. It wasn't fancy, no granite countertops or spiral staircases, but it had a garden, a sunny kitchen, and a tiny room at the back where I could read in silence. More importantly, it felt like mine, like something I chose, not something I was placed into. Every morning, I walked to school past rows of maple trees, their leaves turning from green to amber, and felt the quiet hum of a life rebalancing. I wore the sapphire ring often, always on my right hand, not as a memory of Nathan, not even as a gesture toward Evelyn, but as a symbol of the girl who didn't just walk out of a restaurant that night, but who walked away from a life that would have slowly erased her. Nathan and I talked from time to time. A coffee here, a text there. Nothing romantic, nothing false. Just careful, cautious honesty that felt more real than anything we'd shared during our engagement. He told me about therapy, about learning how much of his life had been curated for the approval of one man. He said he felt like he was learning how to breathe without holding his shoulders up to his ears. I believed him, and yet I didn't move closer. One afternoon, he asked gently if I could ever see us trying again. A clean start, he said. No expectations. Just us. I looked at him across the cafe table, stirring a cup of tea that had long gone cold. I thought about the way he used to lean on his father's words like scaffolding, how easy it was for him to go quiet when the room got tense. And I thought about me, how hard I'd worked to find my voice, to step out of the background of someone else's life. I'm not ready, I said. I need to know who I am without you before I can imagine who I might be with you. He nodded, and for the first time, I believed that he truly understood, that he wasn't just saying what he thought I wanted to hear. Weeks passed. I returned to teaching with a new kind of focus, one not driven by fear or burnout, but by clarity. My students, all third graders, had a way of asking the most unintentionally profound questions. One day, a little girl named Mariah asked, "Miss Carter, do you think people change?" I smiled and said sometimes, but it has to be because they want to, not because someone else told them to. That afternoon, I ran into Nathan again, at a bookstore this time. He was holding a novel I'd once recommended. We exchanged pleasantries, updated each other on life. He asked about the new place, and I told him about the garden, about the basil I couldn't keep alive, and the rosemary bush growing like a weed. As I turned to leave, he touched my arm lightly. "Thank you," he said. "For what?" "For leaving. For showing me what it looks like to value yourself." I smiled. Not the kind you give out of politeness or habit, but one that came from the center of my chest, the kind that feels earned. Take care of yourself, Nathan. I am, he replied. For the first time, I really am. I walked out into the cold air, the weight of our history no longer clinging to my skin. There was no longing, no ache, no what if waiting for me at the edge of that sidewalk. And for the first time in a long while, I didn't feel like I needed to be chosen. I had chosen myself. That night, I slipped the sapphire ring off my finger and placed it into a small ceramic bowl on my windowsill. I didn't need it anymore. Not as a reminder, not as a symbol, because now I carried that strength inside me, in the way I walked, in the way I spoke, in the way I refused to shrink to fit someone else's version of love. This wasn't a story about heartbreak. It was a story about return. Not to Nathan, but to me. 6 months later, it still amazes me how quickly a life can change and how long it takes for the heart to catch up. I'm sitting on the front porch of my new house. Yes, my house. A small craftsman-style bungalow with blue shutters and a maple tree out front, its branches dancing in the late afternoon light. I used the money I had saved for the wedding, every last cent of it, as a down payment. I joked with Tara that I was marrying the mortgage instead. But every time I make a payment, every time I sweep the front step or plant something new in the garden, it feels like a declaration. This is mine, chosen by me, built by me. Nathan and I tried for real this time. For about 3 months after he left his father's firm, we started again from scratch. No rings, no labels, just the two of us trying to figure out if the love we once had still had roots worth tending. We talked honestly, went to couples therapy, set boundaries. He stayed at his new job, despite pressure from Gregory to return. He even joined a support group for adults dealing with overbearing parents. He was doing everything right, but something had shifted, something subtle yet irreversible. Each time he took me to dinner, I found myself scanning the restaurant, waiting for the sneer of an older man, listening for the sound of a cruel chuckle. I couldn't unhear it, couldn't unfeel it. The trust that had cracked that night at the Cobalt Room never really healed. It just stretched thinner, quieter, until I could barely pretend it was there at all. 2 months ago, we sat across from each other at my dining table. He'd brought takeout, and we were laughing about a bad date Tara had gone on. The moment was warm, familiar, and then between bites of lo mein I said it. I don't think we can fix this. He paused, set down his chopsticks. Because of my father? I shook my head. Because of us. Because I had changed. Because now I knew what I needed. And because Nathan, despite all his effort, was still trying to become the man he thought I wanted, instead of just being the man he needed to be for himself. He nodded slowly. I was afraid you'd say that. His voice was soft, but I felt it too. We cried that night, not the kind of sobbing you do when something is torn away, but the quiet kind, the kind that comes when two people realize they're letting go of something they both loved, but that no longer fits who they are. Before he left, I tried to hand him back the sapphire ring. He refused. She gave it to you, he said. Keep it. So I did. I wore it for a while, then stopped. It sits in a small wooden box on my bookshelf now, next to the novels I used to read aloud to him at night, not as a token of him, but of me. A week later, I got a formal note from Gregory Bellamy. Just a card, no handwriting, no warmth. Alex informs me of your final separation. I wish you well in your future endeavors. Coming from him, it may as well have been a sonnet. Evelyn still calls sometimes. We meet for coffee once a month. She's taken up painting again, something she gave up decades ago when she married into the Bellamy name. Last time we met, she pulled a folded sketch from her bag, a watercolor, 2 women sitting on a rocky beach, the wind in their hair, faces tilted to the sea. That's us, she said, in another life. I didn't cry, but I held her hand across the table and squeezed it. I've since been promoted to lead teacher at my school. It's not glamorous, but it's meaningful. The kids trust me. The parents listen. I walk into that classroom every morning knowing I am exactly where I belong. I've started dating again, cautiously on my terms. No fairy tales, no performances, just small conversations, shared coffees, laughter that doesn't have to fight against shame. And more importantly, I feel whole, even when I'm alone. My friends joke that I should write a book. How walking out of a fancy restaurant changed my life. Maybe I will someday. But for now, I'm content. Sometimes I sit on the porch with a cup of tea and listen to the wind through the trees. I feel the cool air on my skin and remember the girl I was a year ago, the one who wanted so badly to be enough for someone else's world. And I smile, knowing she didn't just leave a dinner that night. She walked back into herself. And she never looked back. Last week, something happened that might have unraveled me months ago, but now it just settled quietly in my chest, like the last piece of a puzzle finding its place. I was at a downtown coffee shop, grading spelling tests, when I looked up and saw him, Nathan. He was standing in line, laughing at something on a woman's phone. She was pretty, confident, the kind of woman who probably belonged in the Bellamy world without ever needing to prove herself. He looked good, too, relaxed, like a man who no longer flinched at his own reflection. He didn't see me at first. I could have slipped away, avoided the awkwardness, but I didn't. I sipped my coffee, breathed through the tightness in my chest, and waited. Eventually, his eyes found mine. He froze for a second, the smile on his face faltering, but only just. Then he walked over, alone. The woman stayed at the counter, oblivious. "Hey," he said. His voice was warm, familiar, but not possessive. "Hey," I replied. We exchanged pleasantries. He asked about school. I told him about my latest class pet disaster, an attempted jailbreak involving a hamster and a box of crayons. He laughed. I asked about his new job, and he spoke with genuine pride, not trying to impress, just sharing. It was the first time in a long time we'd spoken without either of us reaching for the past or stumbling over what-ifs. As I gathered my things to leave, he touched my arm gently. "Thank you," he said. I tilted my head. For what? For having the courage I didn't. For walking away when I thought we could fix it. For showing me what it actually means to value yourself. I didn't answer right away. I looked at him. Not the man I'd loved. Not the man who'd broken my heart, but someone new. Someone learning. Someone becoming. And maybe I was too. I gave him a small, honest smile. "Take care of yourself, Nathan." "I am," he said. "For the first time, I really am." I walked out into the autumn sunlight. The wind caught the edges of my coat, and I slipped a hand into my pocket. My fingers brushed the edge of something smooth. The sapphire ring. I'd started wearing it again, not for the meaning it once held, but for the quiet strength it reminded me of. But now, I reached in, pulled it off, and held it for a moment in my palm. Then, slowly, I tucked it away again, back into the little velvet pouch, back into the quiet. I didn't need it anymore, because I had become what it represented. I had become the woman who stood up, who walked away, who refused to shrink herself for a seat at someone else's table. And when I got home that afternoon, I did something I hadn't done in a long time. I opened the windows, let the air in, put on music, cooked dinner just for me. And when I sat down to eat, there was no silence, no ache, just presence, just peace. Some nights, I still think about the life we almost had. The house, the holidays, the conversations we might have had over morning coffee or late-night wine. But it doesn't hurt the way it used to. It doesn't ache with longing or loss. It's just a different story. One that could have been, but wasn't meant to be. Because the real story, the one I'm living now, isn't about being chosen. It's about choosing. Choosing peace over pressure. Choosing truth over silence. Choosing myself. And that, I've learned, is the kind of love that never leaves you.